Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Building a Career in Business Technology and Project Management webinar. My name is Marley, and I'm the Marketing Manager for Prepped. And today with me, I have Jeff Weingarten and Vishal Sawlani to talk to us about their experiences and how they got into the industry. So thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So we've got a pretty packed list of questions today, and we do only have the half hour, so I'm going to get started right away. Everyone, if you have any questions, feel free as always to drop them within the chat and we'll do our best to answer them at the end. If we don't get to your questions, don't be afraid. I will make sure I follow up with you with an answer. So before we get started into the deep questions, maybe you guys can tell us a little bit about yourselves and what your career journey has looked like.
Sure. I'll take this one first. So hi, everyone. My name is Vishal Sawlani. I currently work as a project manager for CBRE, which is one of the largest commercial real estate firms in the world. By background, I'm an architect. I did a bachelor's in architecture, worked as an architect for a number of years, and then pivoted to project management. And that's been the sort of gist of the career journey. And then, Jeff, I think you're going to highlight yours.
I have a feeling he's frozen. Okay, so maybe we'll just continue. Okay, so I'll get into the next question. So what was your educational background like, Vishal?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I did 5 years bachelor's in architecture. And then when I was trying to move into project management, I ended up doing a master's first in BIM and sort of digital design, and then followed up by a master's of real estate development.
That's great. I think he's coming back now. I can see his, okay, we'll keep going. Okay, so let's talk about your role in specific. What's a day-to-day in your industry? Is your schedule flexible? What's a day in your life, in the life of you?
So that's very interesting, isn't it? So it really depends on the type of projects I'm working on. So I could be working on 3 to 4 projects at the same time. It could happen that I could be working on a proposal for a client. I could be in an interview where we are pitching our service to the client. Alternatively, it could happen that I'm running my project and I am engaging with other stakeholders and I'm interviewing someone and hiring someone. It could also happen that we are checking in and doing weekly meetings, progress calls, risk management workshops. So the schedule, yes, is flexible, but since you are the sole sort of integrator and the show person of a project, everyone is looking up to you for answers. So you got to make sure that you are available to handle those small concerns and manage the big issues as well at the same time.
So I can imagine it's flexible, but very, very busy.
Very busy, yes.
So Jeff, I'm going to come back to you. So I see that you're unfrozen there. So maybe that's okay. Let's kind of come back a couple of questions. So tell us about yourself, what your career journey has been like, and maybe your educational background.
So, hi, everybody. Sorry for the technical glitch there. Jeff Weingarten. I'm the Director of Business Technology within RBC Global Asset Management. My journey to get to this point has been an interesting one. My background is in health sciences, so my original career path was medicine. But through various twists and turns, I ended up working as a product manager at Sun Life Financial. Took on more and more of a technology role there, and then just parlayed that into project delivery within 4 different businesses within RBC. So made the move to the bank about 9 years ago, and haven't looked back. So it's been a great journey so far.
Awesome. And before we continue, I kind of just want to take a step back and say, what is business technology? Because I obviously you have a very long title, so I believe it's Director of Business Technology and Project Delivery.
So
what does that mean?
Business technology in the market right now means a couple different things. I looked up, for those of you who are in Toronto or Ontario, Ryerson offers a degree in business technology that actually is a BCom degree. So they have it's a business degree with a technology focus. For us, business technology is actually the name that we gave the consolidation of a few different teams that formed through acquisition within RBC. So we have a group in Vancouver that had a group called Business Systems Group, a group in Minneapolis called Business Technology Services, and then we consolidated all those groups under one titled Business Technology, really as a differentiator from RBC's core technology and operations group. So it was a name we gave ourselves, but recognizing that it does align in part to what the education world is calling business technology.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for expanding on that. As your role changed at all during the pandemic, I'd kind of like to get a sense of what your roles were like prior to the pandemic and what they're like now working from home, because I understand it's most of the time a very agile environment.
It has its challenges. I mean, you mentioned the phrase agile. For those of you who are working in that type of project delivery methodology, one of the core tenets of agile is co-location. And clearly we're not co-located anymore. So it really does test the limits of what agile delivery and what project delivery can do. The days present their own challenges. If you are living at home alone, if you're living at home with kids, everybody has sort of moved from crisis mode into this new normal, and you need to figure out what works. But a lot less meetings, a lot more meetings, but a lot less casual encounters, which is where a lot of work for me gets done when you just happen to be in the elevator with somebody and you're like, oh, hey, we should talk about so-and-so. I find that you need to be a lot more thoughtful and purposeful in the way that you manage your day, because you're not going to just run into people or not going to be able to stand up and say, hey, can you help me with this? So it takes a lot more forethought.
Right. For sure. And what about you, Vishal? How has your role adapted or changed throughout this whole thing?
So I would say two things. So firstly, so I'm a big proponent of doing like meeting people face-to-face and, face-to-face meetings. And that has completely shifted. And I'm like on back-to-back Zoom calls every single day. There's a term going around in the industry around Zoom fatigue and stuff. That's definitely happening at one point. But on the other hand, there's with sort of every issue comes an opportunity. So like because we are in real estate now, the market is looking up to us as to understand, what do you guys do? Like, how can you bring people safely back to work? So that has opened up a new sort of a business line for us where we are looking into, advising our clients, advising our research teams, basically. How do you bring people safely back to work? Do you still need that much amount of square footage in your offices? So that discussion has slightly pivoted. So there are new sort of roles and opportunities coming out of it. And that's what's happening due to the pandemic, basically.
Great. That's great. Thanks for sharing. So for both of your roles, I imagine that there's different skills that are required. And obviously, I'm sure there's some transferable skills. So maybe, Jeff, you can start with what kind of skills do you think are required to succeed in like your industry or your role? Or is there any skills that you've learned along the way?
Yeah, one that always stood out for me was the ability to manage people without actually having them report into you. So yeah, I think we have an internal course called Managing Without Authority, and that really does become something that you need to be really good at. Be a good influencer, be a good persuader, get people on your side that you don't sign the paychecks for. That becomes really critical. I also think it's important to really understand your business and why your project is happening, because I used to work with a PM long ago who had a project plan, and he basically told me that he could go into any organization at any time and make this plan work. And he believed that. And I don't think that that's true, because every business is somewhat unique. Every stakeholder and sponsor is going to be unique to in order for you to meet their needs. And you need to understand why they're doing what they're doing, not just be a box checker, not just focus on, did we start on time? Is it on budget? Did we, stay green the whole time? It doesn't really matter. I think what's important is you understand why you're doing what you're doing.
I love that. That's a great answer. One thing I've noticed about project management is you have the title project manager, but if you're working in real estate or you're working in finance, it's two completely different worlds. Whereas if you're a marketing manager and you're working in, your job day to day is likely a little bit different, but you're still doing the same thing at the end of the day. So the word project management is kind of different in various industries, right? So Vishal, what about you? What about the skills that you've learned along the way, or which ones do you think are required to succeed?
So definitely a lot of the skills which you mentioned, which Jeff mentioned, are 100% transferable, even on this side as well, even in real estate. But the one skill that would stand out completely is you have to be a good communicator. Even if you go by, the PMI, I'm sure you'll talk about it later, but even PMI mentions this, that 90% of the time a project manager is spending on communications. So because you are the real integrator between different teams, different people, you have to manage your stakeholders. You need to be able to communicate with them properly and manage them at the same time. The next thing is definitely I would say that there's a huge component when you're in project management. There's a huge component around procurement and ethics as well. So you have to make sure that you are firm, but you're fair, because there are multiple teams. There's multiple things happening at the same time. You have to really ensure that you are staying true to your core and being very, very ethical at all times.
Right, and we'll talk about certifications in a minute. But I do want to kind of stick to this topic of skills. So I prepped in July. All of our topics were around upskilling. And our blog section has a ton of articles on what upskilling is and what free resources are available to you to advance your career. So when we're thinking of skills, or the skills that you've just mentioned, what you're looking for in a potential candidate, or is there some stuff that you think that can be taught? I know there's a lot of skills that can be taught, but what are those necessary skills you look for in a potential candidate to hire?
Yeah, I think so there's a couple different camps we can speak to. One is on the technical side. Right now, for those of you who are working in the field, you're likely using tools like Jira or Confluence, and there is a suite of Atlassian tools that you should get really good at. I think that's something that will benefit you, not in the way in which your project goes, but just allows you to be a better communicator and allows you to be more concise with the way in which you interact with your team. So technically, that's becomes really important. I mean, same level of importance I would have put on Microsoft projects a number of years ago. This is just the way in which the field is evolving. On the more subjective side, someone who's been able to prove to me that they can just get things done, someone that can, interact well and present to a new room, a large room, someone who knows just how to be confident and, really manage conversations. Because as, Vishal said, communication is extremely key, and people like to talk in those meetings, and you got to keep people on task. So, I think there's a lot of things we could add to that list, but if we're trying to be concise, I like those few.
And when you're saying tools that you guys work with on a day-to-day, do you have any examples of what those are?
Just as I mentioned before. So Jira is a system that we use to manage user stories. Yeah. Confluence is a repository of data for those people who used to use SharePoint. It's sort of the new age SharePoint. And there's a whole suite of tools that are available through that company called Atlassian. There's another one called Trello, which is a road mapping tool. I think that just enables you to be a more efficient PM.
We actually use those tools at Prep. We use Trello, we use Jira, we use Confluence, and a bunch of other project management tools. And I find that day to day, it makes my job so much easier. Like, obviously, we have a project manager that keeps us on track and to make sure that we're performing and completing our sprints at the right time. But these tools are literally there to help you. And I think the more you know them, the more that you'll be considered a top candidate.
It's there to help you and keep you honest. I mean, if you have a task assigned to you, you need to complete that task. So it's not like you got something lost in an email somewhere. It's pretty much right there in front of you.
Yeah. And Vishal, what kind of, what do you look for in a potential candidate?
So most of the things what Jeff's mentioning, the tools are more or less applicable, but we do stress Microsoft Project is a commonly used tool in the construction industry. So that is a plus point if you have it. And plus the industry is moving much more towards data analytics as well. So not just our Command and Excel and PowerPoint, all of that, but also for example, if you know Power BI. So are you able to collate those data reports and make into a visual sort of a graphic for the client? That's really helpful. So that's, I would say, from a technical tools and perspectives, those are the skill sets we look for. From the other side, the soft skills perspective, your presentation skills are important because if you're the project manager, you're chairing every single meeting. There could be a lot of C-suite executives there. There could be, people directly who are working straight on trades and construction. So you need to be able to maneuver and move along the conversations and interact with different sort of stakeholders. So that's really, really key. And then comes your, the education background and stuff you have as to, are you doing stuff in the relevant field? Are you trying to pivot? So, that's on a case-by-case basis we discuss.
Right. Okay. And on top of those skills, obviously, I think certifications are obviously an asset for certain industries. So I want to dive in a little bit on the topic of certifications. We had a lot of questions from a lot of our attendees. So from what I know, there's about 8 recognized project management designations from PMI, and they're available no matter where you are in your career journey. So you could be, further down the line, you can take a PMP course. If you're at the beginning of your career, you can take the CAPM. So do either of you have the certification? What was the process like? What was the exam like? Do you have any tips? Maybe Vishal, you can go first because I believe you have your PMP.
Yeah, I do. So I took it, I think around 5 years ago. So I believe there's, unless the rules have changed, it's at 35 hours of PDUs. So you need to attend classes for 35 hours. You need to have around 3 years of experience to appear for a PMP. And then it takes about, say, roughly 3 to 4 months to go through that study process and, give that exam. I took the classes face-to-face in a classroom environment. However, that might not be possible right now. But if people are interested, you can definitely take those courses. I'm sure there are multiple webinars and stuff that run online. I think even PMI has started now doing the exams in a remote session, proctored environment. So you can basically take the exam even at home.
That's perfect. For those on the line who asked about potential courses or classes to get those 35 hours before taking the PMP exam, I personally took the project management certificate from Ryerson University. So it's the Chang School of Continuing Education, I believe. It was really great. The classes were awesome. A lot of the professors were incredible as well. So I highly recommend that school. Of course, there are a bunch of courses you can look online. And it will tell you in the description of the classes or the courses if they count towards PDU. So just make sure that they do count. And we'll move on to Jeff. So Jeff, do you have any certifications when you're hiring? Do you look at somebody with certifications? And
I don't have my PMP. Do I look for that as a prospective candidate? I don't, to be honest. I look for someone with good experience. I look for someone who has a couple of differentiators, and when I try to meet as many as I can early in the interview process so that I can understand who they are and their sort of desire to get to know our business and get to know sort of how they would interact with certain people that I know they're going to be interacting with. The last few hires that I've made have been sort of fit for purpose. We had a new piece of technology come out and we needed someone to support that technology. So I needed to hire somebody, in this case it was Salesforce CRM, we needed to hire somebody with that Salesforce background. It just so happened that one of the qualifications was some agile experience, which they had. So, it really worked out. But if I'm hiring a straight up PM or someone who can support another program, I don't have PMP or CAPM as a disqualifier or qualifier. It's more about their body of work.
It's all about the experience that they have. So that's good to know that if you want to be a project manager, you don't need to have the designation to be successful. I'm sure it doesn't hurt. So Vishal, when you're looking to hire somebody, do you look for that designation or?
Not really. I mean, even certain job posts in the industry that go out, they do say, for example, PMP is an asset. Especially if you are in the early years of your career, in trying to pivot maybe from one field to another and coming to project management, the PMP just gives the hiring manager, the recruiter, a basic confidence. There's an early sort of a flag saying, okay, do you understand the basic concepts of project management? Basically, can you explain what does procurement mean? Can you explain what does risk management mean? Can you explain what is basic process? Because even PMP, it's general. Not like if I'm hiring for a real estate construction specific role, PMP is not construction oriented. I can take my PMP and I can also go and work with Jeff, for example, at the same time. It doesn't matter. You can do anything with PMP. So it lays on the basic foundation principles of project management, but then you pick up the skill as you walk along in your specific.
I agree with that, exactly.
Do you find, I actually noticed Dwayne posted a question I think is really applicable to the topic conversation. Having done your PMP, Vishal, how much of the course do you see being applied in your day-to-day work?
Very difficult question.
It varies, right? Because when you're thinking of your PMP, you need to know every single step of a project, right? And I feel like it varies by the project, if I'm going to just assume.
Yes. So not the nitty-gritties of it, just the background information, for example. So I haven't had a time where I have to open my PMP book for example, and understand, okay, what's the next step in the process? I never do that. But if I have to go by the book, for example, there are multiple chapters in place, and every single chapter is a skill you need to have. So you will see that stakeholder management is a separate chapter. Risk management is a separate chapter. So the concepts of that. So risk management is a chapter. They talk about risk management workshops. Does it happen in the real world? Yes, it does. I have risk management workshops happening on every single project of mine. If it's a complicated project, you may have a risk management meeting once a month. So
Okay, that makes sense.
definitely applied, but PMP goes a lot in details and processes and tools and procedures, and not necessarily all those details are applicable in the day-to-day world, I would say.
That makes sense. And then I actually just saw another one from Kim before I get back to the list of questions I previously had. So we did ask the question of what kind of skills are you looking for in a candidate? So what about experience? Are you looking for someone who's managed projects for a very long specific time, or are you looking for people who just have that managerial experience, or what exactly are you looking for?
That's a good question. I think it depends what I'm hiring for. If we're hiring a contract project manager for a relatively large program, yes, they need to be able to have demonstrated, successful completion of pretty large programs in the past or projects in the past. If we're hiring somebody full-time for the team where their world is going to change on a somewhat regular basis, I'd just like to understand sort of their career journey to this point, what work they've done, where they want to go and how they want to evolve, and what type of work are they looking for, because there really is a delineation between those who are focused on strategy and those who are focused on execution. Pretty much everything is execution. I mean, there's a group that always does strategy and you're thinking about, your business, 3 to 5 years out, but everything else is execution of some sort, whether it is a, daily operations run that you need to manage or a project that's going to last 6 months. Everything is doing something. So what have you done that shows me that you're able to manage work in a linear way, in a collaborative way, and manage it in a way that allows you and your team to be successful?
Right. And Vishal, do you have anything to add to that?
I would say it's role by role, and isn't it? And depends on our pipeline of work as well. So if you're getting, large, let's say 300,000 square foot projects, and we determine, now we need a very senior person on board who has done these projects and executed in the past. However, if that sort of team increases, then we need a sort of junior support as well at the same time, and then the experience matters, of course.
Right. Okay. And let's talk about experience a little bit more. So for an aspiring candidate who has no direct project management experience, what would you recommend that they bridge this experience gap? So this could relate to anyone currently living in Canada or the US, or hopefully looking to migrate to Canada in the future. So I'm thinking of newcomers in specific. We had a couple of questions from newcomers, or people who are thinking of moving over to Canada. So do you have any advice on how they can bridge that gap, or
it's that old adage, you can't get experience without, or you can't get work without experience, and you can't get experience without doing the work. I think if you're really early in your career and you have aspirations of project delivery or project management of any kind, it's try to volunteer on certain programs where you can act as coordinator, you can act as sort of an assistant PM, where you may be doing this sort of in your spare time, but at the same time, you're getting the experience and hopefully learning from someone more senior, understanding how they manage a room, how they manage the project, how they manage their documentation. And it's unfortunate, but you need to demonstrate that you can do it before you can actually do it. And it's rare that you graduate with your PMP and then get a job right away. You got to be able to, show that you can actually get the work done.
Right. Okay. And sorry, I should have mentioned, as I'm talking about bridging the gap and thinking of that next step in your career, if you do log into your Prepped account, for those who have an account, if you don't, I strongly suggest you sign up, especially if you're looking for new employment, whether you're at the beginning stages of your career or later on. Prepped is a really great tool for anyone looking for a job. So in our learning library, we have a bunch of free resources to help you as a step-by-step guide to prepare for that next step. So whatever that next step is for you, I personally like our career vision generator, which helps you plan your future based on what matters most to you. So if you're looking to become a project manager, but you're not quite there yet, that exercise will really help you get to that step and help you plan what you need to do to get there. So, so we talked about experience, we talked about skills and certifications, we talked about the PMP exam. I'd like to spend the next, 5 minutes or so tackling some questions from the audience before we sign off. So we do have quite a few, so I'm going to try and plow through as many as we can. And if there's any that I missed, everyone on the line, don't be afraid. I will contact you after the webinar so that we can answer your questions. So, Jeff, I believe you might be able to answer this, Vishal, hopefully as well. As a business analyst, how do I transition into project management? So I think we have a lot of questions on pivoting your career. Do you have any advice for those who are looking to pivot?
I've seen this exact situation occur a number of times. So if you're taking on a relatively small project, see if you can take on both roles, the PM and BA. It sort of saves your manager a headcount and saves, ultimately saves the company a little bit of time and energy. So if you can find a small to medium-sized project in which you can act as both, that's a great trial run for you, and then you sort of prove yourself out as a PM and a BA, which makes you that much more valuable.
Mm-hmm. I think too, if you mention to your employer, I'm interested in doing a little bit more project management, they will 100% allow you to pursue that, and they should support you in that decision, right? So they will put you on more projects, and they'll give you the opportunity to learn more. So I think that's definitely something people on the line should definitely look into doing. This next question is actually a really, really good one from Aaron. So I'm pursuing a certificate in project management at U of T, but I'm unaware whether I should pursue traditional or agile. I worry that some potential employers might think agile is just a buzzword and might not fully understand it. Can you provide any insight to your industry's preference, or if it really matters?
Vishal, you want to take this one first?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I can give you a plain and simple answer. It really doesn't matter. If you want to learn about project management, if you want to go and get that training of that course, that's perfectly fine. It doesn't really matter as to what specific discipline you're taking in. You can still, learn both. You can still apply either or in the industry. If I am hiring someone and I see they have a certificate in project management or a master's in project management, I wouldn't really go and dig deep into down saying, okay, was this methodology or that methodology? Because you know what? It can change as well in 8 years' time, 5 years' time. It can also evolve. The project roles and methodologies, even your PMP methodologies keep changing every 3 years. So as long as you have your basic foundations correct, doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I agree. I think I know at RBC we have targets at the enterprise level about how many projects should be managed through Agile, but Agile means different things to different organizations. True, capital A Agile is very, very difficult to achieve, and I don't believe we're set up to manage it that way, but we've sort of adapted our own version of Agile. I think if you are pursuing one versus another, being able to suggest that you can work in both and to get both certifications or experience in both is not the thing that should slow you down. I mean, to get your PMP written and then find another way to be trained up in Agile and then the Agile tools, it just makes you that much more valuable. And then your sponsors, how they kick off the project with you, will help you understand the best way that you can deliver that project.
Mm-hmm. And unrelated, Jeff, since you're already speaking, I've got a quick one for you. Their question, this is from Omar, about Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer. Are you familiar with that at all? And is it related to business technology?
Be. I mean, look, we manage a lot of tools with Microsoft. We're moving to different cloud environments now. I think if you possess a lot of those skills, look, our business technology team it spans roles from project management through to full stack developers. So we have a number of different technologists within our team of 160, and having that certification would absolutely be valuable if the role was there and the opportunity was there. So it's a great certification to have. It separates you from a lot of the other candidates if you were already be trained up in that. It just depends on the role.
Very good answer. So we've got a lot on pivoting, and I know we've touched on pivoting a lot, and I just want to reiterate for everybody on the line, when you're thinking of pivoting your career, one of the best things you can do is to take these courses that are suggested, whether they're in a job description, if something is required, maybe look at trending jobs that you're looking at, look at what the job descriptions are or what the requirements are. Take a course. You can do some networking. Webinars like this obviously will help you kind of fine tune your skills and experiences a little bit more, especially if you're thinking of going from nursing into project management. Nursing already has a lot of aspects where you're managing a lot of things at once. You're literally managing a bunch of people and making sure that everyone is healthy and safe. So you've already got that skill set, and that is a transferable skill. So when you're thinking of transferring from nursing to project management, look at what certifications you think would complement your current experience and how that can take you to the next level in the job search. This next question actually is a good one, and we've only got a minute or two left, so I'd like to answer this one. Every role are either high demand or low demand. Where do you see project management in 5 years from now? Do you think it will be in high demand? Vishal, maybe you can tackle this one.
100%. So the reason project management roles are increasing day by day is, within every sector, subsector, the roles are becoming much more specialized. So if I can speak from an industry perspective, 100 years back, an architect used to do everything else. They used to design, they used to project manage. The roles of a project manager did not exist at that point of time. However, with roles becoming so much specialized, people are branching and sub-branching and pivoting out to so many different careers that you still need someone to bring everything together and deliver a cohesive solution. So that role of a project manager is not vanishing, is actually increasing day by day.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I feel like when I'm looking at on LinkedIn, everything I follow is a lot is project management related because my role kind of revolves around that. And you see so many new opportunities in project management, and it's growing every day, right? So it's definitely a really great industry, and you guys have proven that today. So we are at our time today, but again, for those on the line, I do want to say I will make sure we get to your questions. I will either contact Jeff and Vishal directly to make sure we get those answers for you. But I'd like to thank everyone on the line and Vishal and Jeff for joining us today. It's proven to be such a diverse industry, and I personally have learned a lot. So for those on the line, thank you for attending today's webinar. If you guys have any questions or anything at all, don't hesitate to email me at info@fullyprepped.ca. And next week, we're actually going to be hosting a webinar on business development and entrepreneurship. So if anyone's interested in that, look out for an email from me within the next 4 to 8 hours for the sign up link. You definitely don't want to miss it. It's going to be a good one. So thank you everyone so much for attending. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much.
You too. Yeah.
Bye everybody.
Cheers. Bye-bye.